After you work with divergent pairs or divergent patterns, uh, like so many situations, you have favorites. And one of my favorites is a divergent pattern that I'm going to show you. It's just like trades. After you use your trade logs and you make a number of trades, you're going to find out that you have a tendency to pick certain ones, and you'll also find out that you'll have a tendency to be more successful on certain trades, and hence you will then pick them more often. So it's kind of a catch-22 situation, but that's what trade logs are there for. That comparative analysis information is just powerful. This example that I have here is with two of the big three. It's trend red and PowRed. On the two vertical green lines, I have trend red in a TOC higher pattern and and PowRed in a TOC lower pattern. And I typically have seen this, possibly seen this more often for gaps up than I have for gaps down. But this is very powerful. It's a very powerful divergent uh, situation. And I think it's because of the two indicators that we deal with. Trend red is literally can literally give us the most information of any indicator in the system, and it's and when it's used, I mean, we long ago became aware of the big three: the trend red, the PowRed, and the swing Zion. But as you use the system more and become more familiar with it, you recognize just the power of things that are going on. This, in this particular example, it on the right vertical green line, it closed at $2.97, and it's obviously closed in a. I'll move this over. It's obviously a what I refer to as a T-bottom doji. It's not quite on the bottom, but it's close to that. And it gapped down from the peak, as we can see. And when we had this move, if you can see that it's a pretty good size gap, but let me point out to you here that it dropped 27% from the previous close to the open of the following day. That would be on this day right here. There was a 27% gap down. Value-wise, it was only 79 cents, but when you have, who knows how many dollars you might have been able to invest. But for each dollar you did, you could have made about 27 cents, or $270 for each $1,000 you would have invested in this particular stock. Just on the with the understanding that you found trend red in a TOC higher and PowRed in a TOC lower. It's a very, very effective system to indicate, to give us information and to tell us that we're going to have a strong movement. Remember, divergent conditions do not tell us direction, they identify power. And so you have to identify with where you're at. On this one, it's pretty simple. We're after the peak that's been on with a really big green candle. So we're reasonably certain which way it's going to go before we even do our analysis. But that being said, let me just give you some other information and show you how you can actually pick the top in this green candle. If you look down here on the power chart, you have PowRed in a BOC pattern on a peak, and you were in a BOC lower pattern. That's the definition of a downtrend. It doesn't tell you about gaps in the situation, not like the next day when we're pretty certain it's going to gap because of the divergent condition. But on this day, when we have, I'm going to move this one out of the way. On this day, when we have the vertical line on the big green candle, we can see that the PowRed is in what we refer to as a basic definition of a downtrend. It's a lower high. So this vertical green line right here is on a lower high in the PowRed chart, which by all indication tells us that it's going to go down. PowRed is also at 3.6 in this example, which again is high, and which tells us that, hey, because it's high, it's likely to go down. Again, it doesn't define anything about a gap. It just defines at this point direction. If you go over to the price chart on this line with the big green candle day, you find price at 149.87. Again, if you haven't heard me comment about where the price peaks out at, price green peaks out at 150. So there's not too much chance that the value is going to go higher. I mean, I have seen stocks go up to 150. Most of the time they go up and they'll hold for one day. I've seen many not even hold at 150. They come back down by the end of the day. I've seen a couple examples where there's been a few days at 150, but very few. And one other signal, I mean, this 149.87 is really powerful for me, but the best one is in the zip chart. You've got zip green at 100, you've got zip Zion at 98.21, and lo and behold, to qualify for the primary definition of a red green peak, excuse me, I said that wrong. A green-pink top. The basic definition of a pink-green top is zip green is at 100 and pink is is highest and right next to it. And it follows along highest. We always disqualify the grandfather, zip Zion. We don't count that because Zion and green are doing the same thing. They're tracking the trades of the stock, and so we consider in this case here, zip pink is at 98, zip green's at 100, Zion's at 98.21. It's just a hair above zip pink. Yellow's at 94, gray's at 95, and red's at 94. And so we have a really, what has happened is zip pink now qualifies. It's right next to green for a next day down. And almost always when zip pink comes out from under other indicators, on the day that it comes out, the day after that you'll have the downturn, which is exactly what happened here. And so and then the other thing is we have another lower high in the swing pink, and we have a 2-day low angle up in swing Zion, which again tells us that it's going down. So you can really pick the tops of these things if you look at them and understand them. Also, one other thing on this one right here, on this day right here, if the divergent difference isn't enough, you've got a trend green in a low angle top, and you also have the Power 4 pink, yellow, blue, white, all in a low angle down. So lots of information there to tell you about what's happening on that day. But the divergence in the trend red versus the power red is absolutely powerful. That will give you information. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you won't recognize the power that's there. You don't realize that it's there until you see the divergence between between the trend red and the power red. It does not have to be in a TOC pattern. It can be in another pattern, but it is powerful when you have divergence. And learn to identify with that. In this case here, it dropped 27% in one day. So absolutely amazing, isn't it? It is powerful. Sensitive indicators are the heart of the system, and we're excited about them. We realized that years ago, and we know that you can benefit from the use of this system in a tremendous way, because it is extremely important that you, when you compare, I mean, think about, you're going to make a trade. You pick a stock and you make a trade. What's more important, that trade that you made, or the system that you use to find the next trade that you make? And that's an obvious answer, but it's extremely powerful. And you can talk about the sensitive indicators, you can talk about the formula power, you can talk about the procedures power. It's the combination of all those that make it so effective. So we're excited. We hope you've got to the point where you see what we've got and understand the power that you have through the eyeglasses of DTVB, because it will really make a difference